5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
This is the Culture Clash.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of Culture Clash here on the Fandom Podcast Network. We're on a different night tonight. We're doing this as a record because of that. So hopefully you're watching this on the YouTube channel or listening to us on the audio feed. But we've got a very interesting and fun episode, I think, this week because we are going to be covering Season 2 of The Last of Us. And we have a very special guest to help us out with that. But before we bring him in, of course, I must bring in my co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network, the one and only Mr. Kevin Reitzel.
Hey, it's weird. We're not on a normal night, but it's for good reasons. I'm excited. We got a very special guest, and it's
international travel schedules of a world-renowned spy. Or wait, I was supposed to say that.
Are you talking about me leaving for Australia in a couple of weeks?
No.
Okay.
Sorry, Kev, not tonight. But no, tonight it's all about our.
Sorry, I've heard that before. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
I hear you. I think you hear that on a daily basis. But, but it is time to bring in our good friend, and we got something special with him too this week. But please welcome John Mosby to the Culture Clash.
Hello, guys. It's the
welcome.
Hello, how are you doing?
We are doing well. I know you're here to talk about The Last of Us, which I know you are very excited for and a huge fan of. But just as a reminder, you are watching Culture Clash on the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel, or you're listening to it on one of our amazing audio feeds. And if you want to find those audio feeds, if you're watching on YouTube, just scan that QR code up on your screen. It'll take you to our main audio feed page at fpnet.podbean.com, where you can find the audio of all of our great shows here on the Fandom Podcast Network. It does?
Yes,
I'm so glad to hear that. So right off the top, we're going spoiler alert. We're going to be deep diving into Season 2 of The Last of Us. So guys, if you have not watched all the episodes, go finish watching Season 2, come back, watch the show on YouTube or listen to the podcast, and maybe let us know what you think. But we got a lot to going on here at the Fandom Podcast Network. Like I said, The Last of Us Season 2 is the main topic of this week's show. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation. Let me just put it that way. And we have a lot of things that are happening around the Fandom Podcast Network. And it's not a coincidence Mr. Mosby is also a guest on this week's Culture Clash, because we officially welcome John Mosby as a contributor to the Fandom Podcast Network. We are incredibly honored to have him here with his newest project, Optimum Pitch, which you can find on our YouTube channel. And we are going to have the audio podcast out as well. John, I would have you let me have the privilege of helping you produce your first episode with Paul Simpson, the acclaimed journalist, editor, and author. It was an honor to be there. But tell people about Optimum Pitch in your first episode.
Well, first of all, Kyle, thank you, because I really couldn't have done any of this without Kyle's working his magic behind the scenes. Optimum Pitch was the name actually was created by my wife, who came up with the term a while back and said that would be a great name for a podcast. So I stole it. And the idea, I realized over the years I've spoken to a lot of people, made friends with a lot of people behind the scenes. Sometimes it's people whose names you've heard of, sometimes it's not, but always interesting people who have stories to tell about how they got into the business, some of the things that maybe people don't know about them. A lot of times people get asked a lot of the same questions. What's your favorite color? Tell us about your latest project. And that can be fine. But I wanted to touch base with some of the people I'd met and see how things had changed for them, for better, for worse, just different, to look at how they got into the business, how they think it's going, be a little bit more sort of up close and personal with them, asking questions about projects that are close to their heart. So it's not necessarily the conventional questions. It's comparing notes. It's just finding out really what makes them tick. And keeping it sort of on a personal level rather than just reviewing or just interviewing. And we started off with Paul Simpson, who He's a journalist, editor, author, who gave me one of my first breaks. Everybody else is getting that. Nope,
Sorry, I think that was a feedback from Kyle's mic there. But
despite what Kyle tried to interrupt me there, no, I'm Paul Simpson, just a great guy who gave me my first break, one of my first breaks, and has been a touchstone for me pretty much ever since. He's done some amazing things. He's a big genre fan. He's a pragmatist as well. He's somebody who knows how things works. Isn't just a fan, but likes going behind the scenes like I do. He used to edit Dreamwatch, which was a huge magazine, genre magazine in the UK and beyond. So it was a real sort of privilege to have him as our kind of opening victim. I'm so thankful he agreed to do that. I know that hopefully over the next few months or so, we're going to start trying to get a regular basis later in the year. I've got a few other names that hopefully that will be sorted.
I was going to ask you about this. You must have a long list, so that'll be cool.
There's quite a few people. I'm going to say it's not always people that you would necessarily jump straight to, but it's the people who are really interested, the people who have stories to tell, and maybe stories that people haven't heard before. And it's always just good to compare notes with people. Sometimes, Paul in the same business as I am, who's done way more, but working behind the scenes. Sometimes people whose names you'll know. But it's just that finding that line that says, how did you start and how is it going? So it should be interesting. Should be some really interesting people coming up.
Cool.
Very excited about it. And I'm just honored that you to be a part of it. It was, if you have not watched this yet, listening to these two gentlemen talk, Kevin, it was like a masterclass in journalism and covering just the history and so many interesting stories.
I'm just glad he doesn't have those secret recordings of those Highlander after parties,
Oh, do I? You thought we were here to talk about The Last of Us, Kevin, but no.
We've completely morphed into an episode of Blood of Kings. Look out. Well, besides Mr. Mosby's amazing new show on the network, and again, we are so honored to have him be a part of the Fandom Podcast Network going forward. We've got some other things going on. Of course, recently on Culture Clash, we had our full coverage of Andor Season 2. And
I haven't seen the last episode yet.
No spoilers here. No spoilers here.
No spoilers here, but I am curious to the point where you're at now. Have you been enjoying Andor Season 2?
I have. I know some Star Wars purists will say it doesn't feel like Star Wars, but it does feel like quality television. It feels like The West Wing meets Game of Thrones, and that's a pretty high standard. Everybody, brings their A game to it. I love the fact that it moves around and makes us invested in invents whole worlds and makes us invested in also the little groups in each of them. Obviously, most people know that this is a prequel, so we kind of know where some people will end up. But for saying all that, it's been. Despite that, you would think that would be like it would hobble it a little bit, but actually it invests it with a lot of pathos. Some of it's bittersweet. We know something that's going to happen, but how we get there, and that's always fascinating to me. The how we get there, the journey, as it were. And it's what I've seen of it so far. It's up there with the first season, and that was pretty good as well.
Yeah, I mean, that last episode with a horde of Rancors just going through Coruscant, man. God, that was amazing. Oh, sorry. I kid.
Cue the secret recordings.
Kyle, your audio's off here, so I'm going to go ahead and take over here. Just check on that for me there. We've also had the Time Warp 1990 going on. Guys, check it out. 1990 was 35 years ago. We are coming up through June soon here, and 1990 was quite a year, and it makes me feel old talking about this. So make sure you guys check it out. Recently, we had Time Warp 1990 April and May, and of course coming up will be June.
20 years ago at least. Must be 20 years ago. That
it feels it is right, not 35 but 20. Yes. Also, too, for you Orville fans, we have did a limited 10-part series discussing each episode. We talked about each of the main characters. And last episode of it, we talked about all of the guest stars and Star Trek alumni that were on the show. And our good friend Norman, both friend to both us here at the network, of course, John Mosby as well, brought to us an idea for Couch Potato Theater, Be Kind and Rewind, a limited series here where we're looking back at films that maybe we didn't originally like, but we've kind of warmed up on, and including The Populace too. And we kind of talk about what went wrong and why they didn't get sequels. And John, we had you on for John Carter because apparently you got mad at the director. The director got mad at you, and that was a good story.
The director got mad at me. Yes. Yeah.
So make sure you check out the John Carter and Green Lanterns. Those are out, and coming up soon is the A-Team. We'll check in on that later. And we recently discussed Couch Potato Theater Sahara, the 2005 Matthew McConaughey movie that's celebrating its 20th anniversary, feeling old. And we're going to be celebrating the 1980s canon films with retrospectives on several of the movies that came out, action movies that came out. We're going to be talking about the first two American Ninja films, 1 and 2, coming soon. And also, too, dropping very soon is 1985 classic, turning 40 years old, a personal pick of our good friend Jennifer from the network. Just One of the Guys. I got myself on there, Jennifer, and also Lacey. So make sure you check that out. A comedy classic. And Kyle, we got some Type 40 action going on with Dan, right?
Yeah, the latest season of Doctor Who just wrapped up. Mr. Hadley and his crew of companions have been all over the current season of Doctor Who with Type 40, and they do a fantastic job over there covering all things Doctor Who. They're wonderful at it. But John, I know you're a big Doctor Who fan too. What did you think of this last season of Doctor Who?
Well, the finale is coming up, but it's been very controversial for some people. I know the ratings have dipped a little bit. That's undeniable. I think it's a show that reinvents itself, regularly, and we all know it does. And if you don't like what's happening now, something else will come along. I do think that parts of fandom have been a bit toxic. People almost revel in talk displeasure about it. But I think there's lots of people who do like it, and there's lots of people who it's not for them. But whatever happens, in whether it's this year, next year, or in a few years' time, that it will reinvent itself again. And it's one of those unique shows, part of my childhood, perhaps not aimed for me anymore, but I still enjoy watching it. Otherwise, I wouldn't watch it anymore. Simple as that, I think.
Yeah. And finally, too, on the network, something we had a lot of fun with. I built the team of Thunderbolts of the Fandom Podcast Network podcasters. We had a good time with this, talking about what the latest edition of Marvel movie on the True Believers podcast. So go check out Thunderbolts, or you might not be on the Wheaties box. I'm just saying, Mr. Kevin.
Yes, and also we had a segment on the popcorn buckets. That was a lot of fun.
But guys, we are here to talk about The Last of Us Season 2, so let's get into that. Okay, guys, we are here to talk The Last of Us Season 2. Let's kind of just dive in here right out of the gate, guys, with talking about the episodes, because it was a short season of season 2 of The Last of Us. We only had 7 episodes this season, so I'm going to kind of just run down the network, Kevin, if you would help me here and talk about some of the episode plot synopsis.
Sure. Let's start with season 2, episode 1. That is Future Days. Synopsis goes as such. 5 years after Joel kills 19 fireflies at the hospital and rescues Ellie, they live in Jackson, Wyoming, but the relationship has become strained. Joel's psychotherapist, Gail, admits her resentment towards him for killing her husband, Eugene, while Joel expresses his sadness concerning Ellie and confesses that he saved her, though he admits the murders. On patrol, Ellie and Dina find an infected nest in a supermarket, and Ellie kills a new type of infected that silently stalks her. Ellie and Dina kiss at the party, prompting a homophobic slur from the bar owner, Seth. After Joel attacks him, an angered Ellie tells Joel she does not need his help, and he leaves. Infected tendrils begin to enter Jackson through a broken pipe as Abby and her friends Nora, Owen, Mel, and Manny have all sworn to kill Joel for the hospital massacre approaching the town from afar.
Okay, I want to just kind of do like just a quick thoughts as we go in between episodes, and we'll talk about the season overall. But I want to ask you guys both. It's been a while since we had gotten a season of The Last of Us. How did you feel about this first episode, and pull you back into the world of The Last of Us? John, you're our guest. I'm going to start with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a strong opening. I think a theme we'll probably come back to is how people watch the show, as in whether they are watching the show cold or whether they're familiar with the game. I think undeniably those are two quite different experiences, at least when it comes to expectations. A teacher at my local school, Laura, if she's watching, hi. We always used to joke about The Last of Us in the first season because I'd seen all the episodes. She had no idea about. She knew there was a game, but she was just going, "This is really great." And Pedro Pascal, he's brilliant. And I'm sitting there going, like, "Well, the second season's coming on. This should be interesting." And it was very interesting to watch this opener, setting the scene for a lot of the things that were to come. And if you know the game, you see more in some ways. But I think the secret of why it's popular is you don't have to know anything about the game for it to be really good quality television, great performances, great acting, and the opener basically set the scene. You know, this is where they are. We know things have happened. We're not quite sure why people are various strangers, what some of the relationships are, but there's very much a feeling of setting the scene. And I think it did that very, very well.
Kevin, what about you? Did you feel this was a good coming back into the world of Last of Us?
Yeah, it did. I thought it was a good start. I just want to say this up front that I've never played the video game, so I don't know any of the comparisons or references, only from secondhand from what I hear from friends and social media and stuff like that. So it's not my type of game to play, and I've been kind of out of playing games for the last several years anyway. I'm more of a first person shooter guy, not a third person search and stuff like that. But anyway, it was nice to kind of get into it. And also, I didn't go back and rewatch the first season. During the first season when we were talking about it, I obviously rewatched some of the episodes when we were talking about it and stuff like that. A couple of them anyway. So this was a good thing to kind of, and stuff was kind of starting to fall back into my brain, and I was talking to my wife about it as well because she had watched the first season, so we got to watch it together and stuff. So and it was interesting to also just kind of see the time jump as well, which made sense to do. And so I thought it was a good start. What about you?
I thought it was a good back into getting the feel for the show and kind of what was happening. And I think HBO did a very good job of kind of just getting that balanced out and getting you feeling like, okay, yeah, we're back into it. But here's the thing, guys. It's really kind of episode 2 that a lot of people are considering like the biggest episode of the season. So let me give you the rundown on episode 2, Through the Valley. After taking shelter in a lodge near Jackson, Abby remains steadfast in her mission to kill Joel while her friends concerned about the town's security consider retreating. While scoping out Jackson, Abby accidentally awakens a large horde of infected hiding under the snow. She escapes and is saved by Joel on patrol with Dina. The horde makes their way to Jackson, leading to a battle where the town suffers heavy damage and casualties. Abby brings Joel and Dina to the lodge where Dina is knocked out, and Abby reveals herself to be the daughter of the Firefly doctor who Joel killed at the hospital. She shoots Joel in the leg and brutally beats him with a golf club. Ellie enters the lodge, but is restrained by Abby's party and forced to watch helplessly as Abby fatally stabs Joel in the neck with the broken golf club's handle. Ellie swears to kill Abby, and Abby's group leaves. As Jackson begins to recover from the battle, Ellie, Dina, and Jesse return home with Joel's body. Kevin, this was like a very powerful episode for a lot of reasons here.
Yeah, I remember watching with my wife, and they're like, "Oh, okay, they killed him off pretty quickly." Of course, we got a feeling that we would see Joel, Pedro Pascal, return in flashbacks. We're like, there's a lot of stuff that was left out there, especially during that time jump that has to be answered. And so I was apprehensive going, okay, so I knew Joel was going to die. It's, people talk about it. I knew it was going to happen. I just didn't know when. I was expecting it to happen at the end of the season, to be perfectly honest with you. So that did catch me by surprise. The whole battle scene was fantastic. A lot of carnage, and that death scene of Joel, played by Pedro Pascal, probably falls under one of the, really tough death scenes of popular characters in TV history. At least it's in the discussion. So especially the way that people reacted about it, and how will the show go on? We know the video game goes on without Joel, but how will the show fare because of that? That's the big question, and we'll have thoughts on that later.
John, I know we've discussed off mic several times when they were going to address this in the show, if they were going to change some things around and something like this. Were you shocked it was in the second episode, or was it something that you were like, okay, this is the right decision?
I was surprised that it was going to. It became clearer, I think, as the episode progresses, that it was inevitable, unless they did something very weird, that we were going to get to it by the end of the second episode. But it really, until we were underway with the second episode, I was like everybody else. For basically pragmatic and creative reasons, I presumed, like you, that it would be later in the season. I've been very tight-lipped with people I know who hadn't seen the game, who weren't aware. I was tempted to say things, only to kind of prep people, because I knew how hard it would hit. And it was obviously, people who didn't know it was coming. It was all over the media. It was everything was people were talking about in the entertainment press. Those of us who knew it was coming, it was like, okay, we had a bit of time to prepare for for this. I think for people who went in cold, it was quite a disturbing development and a strange one, because it's a show, and we'll talk about this in a bit, but it's a show very much its early success was on the chemistry between, Bella and Pedro. And so to immediately take that out, confused a lot of people. It's like, okay, he's going to be whatever happened. It's a dream sequence. He's going to step out of the shower next episode. But it was undeniably powerful, and for those of us who knew it was coming, it was as powerful, in some ways even more disturbing than the game itself. But I was surprised that they went there as quickly as they did. This season is very much a quite straightforward adaptation of the first third or so of the second game. But yeah, I was genuinely surprised. It was pretty savage. My wife was saying, I don't know if I want to watch it anymore. She knew what was coming because she's seen me play the game several times. I love the game. It's strategy. It's emotional. There is a really good story in there that screams television or movie. But yeah, that second episode, it was kind of surprising. And maybe that's the reason they did it, because they presumed that everybody would think it would come further down the line. And maybe it should have done. But undeniably a really, really powerful hour of television on a personal level with Joel, and with a special effect worthy of Game of Thrones elsewhere.
Yeah. A lot of people were actually making Game of Thrones comparisons to
it feels very much like the Wall, the Battle of the Wall, and the White Warriors, and and Jon Snow and everything. Yeah, I mean it was right up there. It gave Game of Thrones a serious run for its money.
Kevin, can you give us the rundown? Oh wait.
What's with Pedro Pascal and dying by head deaths? What's going on with that? I'm just
well, originally, of course, it was going to be Sean Bean in the part, and it would have been very different if that was the case.
Yeah. All right. So, episode 3, The Path. Here is a synopsis for that. 3 months later, Dina tells Ellie that the group who killed Joel, members of the Washington Liberation Front (WLF), are based in Seattle. At a small town hall meeting, several townspeople opposed sending a group to Seattle to track them down. Ellie reads a letter persuading the townspeople to send the group out of justice, not revenge. But the town council rejects the proposal. As Ellie gathers weapons to leave for Seattle alone, Dina tells her she will join. Bringing appropriate supplies and planning a travel route, Seth, who vocally supported Ellie during the town hall, helps them leave Jackson. The following morning, Ellie leaves coffee beans on Joel's grave. Later, she and Dina encounter a group of dead Seraphites, including a young child. the sight of which caused Dina to vomit. They arrive in Seattle and note the lack of WLF members. Meanwhile, a convoy of dozens of soldiers march through the streets of Seattle with several armored vehicles.
Okay, gentlemen, John, start with you. Your quick thoughts on that, on episode 3.
It's always interesting when you have a big development, what the aftermath is of something like that. It's very easy I think, to go wrong with that. And once you accept that this has happened in the previous episode, there are only a variety of ways you can address that. You can almost ignore it, which is never going to work. You can dwell on it, and everybody's going around weeping all the time, which is emotionally true, but probably doesn't make great television if that's all that episode is. So it moves things very quickly in some ways. It basically says, okay, we've lost one of our main stars, but we're still going full steam ahead. Still keeping the narrative of the game, a few tweaks along the way. But I mean, again, I thought Bella Ramsey was great. I know there's been controversy about her casting, but honestly, talent-wise, she's completely up for the role. Absolutely great in the role. And she really does have to. I mean, if you have the big event previously, this is really the consequence. People have to bring their A game for something like this, and she did, and it was a very interesting statement of intent. I think that this story is not over. It just took a right turn or left turn, but it was a more statement of the series. Okay, we're just getting started, and as that again. It worked. I'm not a huge fan of all the pacing necessarily of the entire season, but a lot of the episodes in and of themselves are pretty damn good, it has to be said.
Kevin, what about you? Because I know we talked a little bit when this happened. It's like, okay, what's next after they kill Pedro?
Yeah, so in a way, it kind of went as I expected. But I thought this episode for me was kind of a letdown for how maybe it was a pacing thing. I'm not sure. I understand them having the town hall thing, and to me, it's like, here we are in a committee. Here's the red tape, blah blah blah. In post-apocalyptic world. And I'm just thinking that with Joel's brother still being there would have been a lot more support and a little more interesting. And now keep in mind my takes, guys. I'm going to remind you again, I know nothing about the game. I'm judging this as a TV show, as a first-time viewer diving into this world. So I don't give a crap about the video game. I'm not going to play it. I'm not going to review it. I'm not going to do this. So keep that in mind when my opinion starts coming out on this stuff here. I am judging this as a TV show. And I think that really needs to be brought in attention when you are translating a TV show out of video games and novels and stuff. You can't always expect the people watching this stuff to go back and play hours and hours and hours of video game or watch hours and hours and hours of a cartoon or a book that these are based on. So please keep that in mind. And that's a reason why this show is decisive, because of the casual viewers and how it might affect them that are just diving into the show and treating it as and judging it as just a TV show. So keep that in mind.
Well, let's keep things moving here, and let's talk about episode 4, which is, of course, the episode entitled Episode Day 1. And this was kind of interesting. So in 2018, Isaac Dixon kills his federal disaster response agency, Fedra squad, and switches allegiances to Wolf, WLF. 11 years later, Isaac, now Wolf's leader, interrogates and later kills a surfinite who refuses to share his group's location. Ellie and Dina's first day in Seattle see them stumble upon the remains of the conflicts between Fedra and the Wolf. They hide out in a music store where Ellie serenades Dina. At night, they find several Wolf soldiers brutally murdered by the Seraphites and evade an incoming Wolf backup squad. The two escape the Wolf and the infected in the subway, but Ellie is bitten while saving Dina. As they hide in an abandoned theater, a heartbroken Dina prepares to shoot Ellie, who explains that she is immune. Dina confesses to Ellie that she is pregnant, and they have sex. The next morning, they overhear that the Wolf, including Nora, are based in the Lake Hill Hospital, and Dina tells Ellie that she still wants to go with her.
Just to clarify real quick, too, as a reminder, the Seraphites, those are the ones with the cut faces. They have a nickname for them, right?
Yes.
What are they called?
The scars or the
Seraphites.
Seraphites.
The scars. Okay, thank you. And they're their religious sect cult of their own is basically what it is. Yeah.
And John, starting with you, because not only does this episode bring in Isaac is being played by the man who voiced him in the game, the wonderful Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah, it's one of the few times that the show has basically gone, yeah, we can't do, that we got the A team, for the game, and certain people just, even though so they were supporting characters, they are well known names, and obviously, he is just a force with in and of himself. Obviously, as an actor, Jeffrey Wright is. He has one of the voices, he has a stature, he can be quite dry and funny and quite dark. If anybody's obviously ever seen Westworld, he was very, very good, multifaceted in that. And this is really our introduction to him with more than you get in the game, a bit more of the backstory in the game. He's just the leader of the WLF, pretty savage, unforgiving. Not to say he's not interesting, but he's not in it enough to make a huge impact other than, oh my god, this guy is a force to be reckoned with. Here they're giving him a bit more backstory, which is something I always welcome. It's an opportunity, as Kevin was just saying, it's there is an interesting opportunity and problem in transferring something from one medium to another, and one of the things the show can do is say, okay, let's take a second to explore this character a little more. And I think it's fascinating to see how savage he can be. That scene, with the torture in the kitchen is really powerful stuff. And on the flip side, you've got Dina and Ellie in the music store having a scene that everybody has been waiting for who loves the game, which is just a small moment of peace where she's playing a heart on the guitar. And so you have those two very powerful for different reasons sequences in the game, in the show. It is an episode that speeds along a little bit. There's a lot that happens. It covers quite a bit. And I think personally, I would have liked it if this was 2 episodes rather than 1, I think, with the events. I think you could have expanded it out a little more. But no doubt, again, that his people, absolutely enjoying their craft. And it's one of the episodes that really does show the series' strength, which is we can be graphic, we can be brutal, and we're not going to pull our punches literally or metaphorically, but also we can have those beautiful moments of calm. And something I'm sure I'll come back to is the production design, again, just excels in every single episode. This one in particular, I think.
Kevin, what about you coming here? We get Jeffrey Wright introduced. We get a lot more things going on with arriving in Seattle. I know a lot of people kind of had maybe some questions about Dina and Ellie because Dina does not ask any questions about how are you immune or anything like that. It just things happen. How are you feeling on this episode?
First, I just want to mention, I'll answer that in a second. I just want to mention one thing I really noticed about this episode is the production value that John just referenced to, especially, the record stuff and the music and all that kind of stuff. And I love that you could see some of the posters that was on the wall of the current music that was popular before the old shit hit the fan, so to speak. And so it dated itself in a really good way that kind of sets you back where you were, because if you're not sure what year that it took place, just look at the posters on the wall, that type of thing. So that was kind of cool. So I was apprehensive going into this because I'm like, okay, how are we going to go on without the major lead that we have been with that was killed off in the last episode? And for me, it started off well with Jeffrey Wright's character coming in. Was it Isaac Dixon, right? Mm-hmm. Perfect, great way to introduce his character, and that kind of interrogation scene, torture scene, whatever you want to call it, and then turn into an execution scene was definitely heavy. And it kind of gives you a sense of what's going through his head. But I didn't get enough of Jeffrey Wright in this episode, because I really was hoping that another character like him would really have a lot more, to do. And I didn't get enough of him in the season, to be honest with you. Now, for the stuff with Ellie and Dina, this is where it started to fall for me. I get the relationship, and I get that she's immune, and I get that, Dina is pregnant. So they come together in that. And I think that's great. But for me, thinking ahead of what's happening in this world with them, I'm like, how is this going to work, and how is this going to end in any good way? And I'm going like, okay, this has become one of those shows again, where it's getting hard to watch. It's not fun. And I was feeling that way around season 5 of Walking Dead, where I had seen enough of certain tropes that they were starting to repeat themselves. And it's not that Last of Us is starting to repeat themselves, but it's really, for me, when you start to like people and you just know it's not going to go well, you start watching with a very uncomfortable era. And this is when it started to turn for me. Acting was superb. It was great. But when I started looking at that couple together, I'm going to be the guy that says it. The wrong person was chosen to play Bella. It should have been Dina. Just going to say, should have switched.
Interesting. We'll get into that a little bit more later on, but let's talk about episode 5, Feel Her Love. En route to the hospital, Ellie and Dina encounter more dead Seraphites. Ellie questions bringing Dina, but Dina reiterates her commitment to their quest for revenge. They are ambushed by stalkers in an abandoned warehouse and saved by Jesse, who has arrived in Seattle with Tommy to look for the two. Pursued by the wolf, the three enter a local park and witness the Seraphites disembowel a wolf soldier. Dina is shot in the leg with an arrow, and Jesse carries her out of the park, while Ellie creates a diversion to attract the Seraphites. After evading them, Ellie continues to the hospital alone. She chases Nora into the quarantine basement that is covered in airborne cordyceps spores, which infect Nora, but not Ellie. Nora realizes Ellie was the immune girl from whom Joel had killed the Fireflies. Ellie reveals she already knows what Joel did to save her and beats Nora with a pipe to find Abby's whereabouts. Guys, this was a pretty powerful episode into itself. A very brutal episode of The Last of Us, John.
It is, and it's interesting, and I think we'll probably come back to this. And it's one of my observations of the series entire is, and again, comes back to the difference between the game and the series. The series, having lost, to all intents and purposes, Pedro Pascal, now has Bella Ramsey as the lead. Quality actor, some quality material. No disagreement with that whatsoever. But they have a problem in the innate adaptation factor of it, which is you can't make the audience hate Ellie too much because people will switch off. That's a pragmatic thing. And I think what the show is trying to do, and do unevenly, is make her keep her. It's like we have to keep her sympathetic. She can do outrageous things, but she has to be kind of sorry at some point, and she has to do horrible things. But we have to be rooting for her, and this is a real problem because in the game, and really the whole story entire is none of the characters are perfect. All of them make stupid mistakes. All of them make understandable mistakes. It's a story driven about the inevitability and the whole idea of revenge being, the whole dig two graves, maxim. And the series can't quite keep consistent from episode to episode, and sometimes within episodes, whether we're supposed to be still sympathetic to a huge extent with Ellie, or whether we're supposed to be shocked. Now, in the game, it's a very gradual thing, but they don't care as much whether you don't. They do care, but very earlier on, there are signs that Ellie is going down a path that may not end well. And a key part is this episode. In the game, in the series, she's like, "Oh, I'm going to be a dad," and it's just like, "Oh, it's." And so that the reaction in the game is great. Now you're a liability. Thanks. To finding out that her friend is pregnant because I'm trying to find and kill people, and you are going to have a baby. Thanks. You're going to slow me down. And that's quite a controversial thing. If they'd done that in the series, I think a lot of viewers would be going like, "Yeah, we're not. Yeah, we've lost Pedro Pascal. I'm not sure I like Ellie anymore." And there's a danger that people will switch off. And I think, as you said, it's powerhouse performances. But it's that you can tell there's been some decisions and meetings that say we have to keep people likable, or at least if we don't like them, we're still rooting for them. And this is the show that basically asks you who you're rooting for. And there's a whole range of characters that you will fully understand, but you feel like shaking and going, "Stop this! It's not going to end well." And the show can't quite commit to that. It gets close, and it's a brilliant show. But this was one of the episodes where I felt, it's delivering on very, very important levels, but this could be a problem, and I think it will be a problem going forward.
Kevin, what about you? What were your thoughts on this episode?
So my wife has said something to me recently that kind of was a little bit eye-opening. So for those of you that don't know, my wife is a huge horror fan. She loves horror movies, and I've been learning. I've been getting a class act, or let's say horror 101. Let's put it this way, from her because of watching films. But she said something very interesting. She says, because I always ask her about horror. Like, did you see this? Did you see that? And she'll say, "Oh yeah, just horrible, not good, or good, or she'll have some mixed feelings about it." But the big point that she made was, and it rings true for me with this series, was that when you watch a movie that's pretty much a big downer, which most horror films are, the characters there has to be someone that's likable. If there is no likable characters and they're all getting killed, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's a good time at the movies. And you want someone to root for, you want someone to cheer for, and that's why there's always someone in the movies, these movies that they fight back and they become the hero in one way, or the ordinary person, and so that tends to be something that my wife looks for and stuff like that. And that was kind of common. That was what John was just saying right now. Straight up, Ellie's not a likable person for me. I find her extremely annoying. I find her very combative, and I have trouble rooting for her. Her playing that guitar was not going to change my mind. Her singing that song was not going to change my mind. I think the person that needed the most counseling from Mrs. Schitt's Creek would have been her. She didn't do enough. She needed more. She really needed some help. But this isn't the type of world that really doesn't cater that, and I get it. But when you start losing me of the main character that now has to carry the show, it makes, for me personally, very hard to continue to question this show now, and how this is what I'm feeling after this episode of like, okay, now I don't like the lead character. The characters that I do like are probably going to die, and there doesn't seem like to be any much hope. So now at this episode, in this time of the season, for me to stay attention to it, I know my wife wants to watch it. She wants to see where it goes, but she's saying the same thing I am. Okay. Now it's starting to feel like the show's becoming homework for me, and not just a casual watch and fun.
I do think it's interesting that Isabela Merced is just, she's great as Dina. The character in the games was very supportive, an important character, but really somebody to bounce things off. You never play. She's
likable.
Now, and that's the thing. They've given her the two. In some ways, they just can't quite say. It's just like, we've got to keep Bella, and Bella's Ellie sympathetic to a point, even when she's doing this stuff. But she's lost in the adaptation the fact that she's a tough survivor, and she keeps making really stupid mistakes. Now in the game, it's impulsive, but very rarely stupid. Maybe reckless, but not stupid. And the TV version of Ellie is making way stupid mistakes, and they're given the qualities.
It's not
Dina.
just the stupid mistakes, though, John. It's her demeanor. And don't get me wrong, Bella Ramsey is a fantastic actress, and I give her all the credit for it. But there needs to be a charm. There needs to be something for, even though she's going to make these stupid mistakes, we still want to root for this character. And I mean, when I look back at like when you look back at like movies and stuff like that where there's a bad guy villain, but yet there's something likable about them, like Loki. You like Loki, but he does horrible things in the first Avengers, And I was looking at like Freddy. Freddy is killing these people in the Nightmare on Elm Street films. But you like him. He's charming. He's freaking funny. You see,
it's always been the opposite for me. That's been one of my complaints with Nightmare on Elm Street, is that they turned him into this kind of charmer. I wanted him to be a savage monster. That's what kept me watching, was the fact that he was funny and that he was enjoying what he was doing, But my point being is that if you're gonna make me follow a character and to be interested to come back and see more of this character, you got to make him somewhat interesting, not necessarily likable, but interesting. And I don't find Ellie interesting or likable at this point.
Interesting. Well, guys, we're running a little long here, so we're going to give you the synopsis for both episode 6 and episode 7, and then talk about them. So, I will hit episode 6, Mr. Reitzel, if you will hit episode 7.
You got it.
So, episode 6 is The Price. A series of flashbacks detail interactions between Joel and Ellie on her birthday. For her 15th birthday, he gifts her with a homemade guitar. On her 16th, he takes her to an abandoned museum where she becomes enamored with its space exploration exhibits. On her 17th, he angrily interrupts a moment of intimacy between Ellie and another girl, causing tension. On her 19th, he takes her out on her first patrol. They encounter Gail's husband, Eugene, who has been bitten. Joel promises Ellie that he will lead Eugene back to Jackson to say goodbye to Gail, but Joel instead leads Eugene away and executes him. Joel lies to Gail that Eugene chose to kill himself rather than endanger her. Ellie, now realizing he lied about the Fireflies, reveals the truth to Gail. 9 months later, after the New Year's Eve dance, Ellie confronts Joel about his actions at the hospital. He cheerfully confesses to everything, but admits he has no regrets about his decisions. She says she does not think she can forgive him, but would like to try. Mr. Reitzel, can you tell us about the season finale, episode 7, which is entitled Convergence?
Convergence, episode 7. Ellie regroups with Dina and Jesse, shaken by her own brutality against Nora. She reveals to Dina what Joel did at the hospital, prompting Dina to suggest they return home. Ellie and Jesse intercept a Wolf radio call about a sniper, who Jesse believes is Tommy. He pursues the source of the gunshots, while Ellie commandeers a motorboat to travel to a nearby aquarium, where she believes Abby to be located based on information from Nora. After barely surviving an encounter with the group of the Seraphites, Ellie enters the aquarium and finds Owen and a pregnant Mel. She holds him at gunpoint and demands further information on Abby's whereabouts. When Owen grabs a gun, Ellie fatally shoots him. The bullet strikes Mel, who begs Ellie to deliver her baby as she dies, to no avail. Jesse and Tommy rescue Ellie, and they return to the theater. Abby ambushes them, kills Jesse, injures Tommy, and holds Ellie at gunpoint. A gunshot rings out. 3 days earlier, Manny wakes up Abby, informing her that Isaac has summoned them.
Okay, guys. As we wrap up the episodes of the season here, your thoughts on these final two, because I think we're very distinctive, but I think they tie into each other a little bit here too, with concerning the events. John, let's start with you on episode 6 and 7.
Yeah, Pedro's back. Woohoo! I mean, this is I think the episode that everybody's talking about Emmy-worthy performances, and certainly there are some key scenes in this which speak to the show's strengths. I'm not sure they always weave perfectly in together as a series, but there's some really stunning moments here. The dinosaur and the museum and the space shuttle sequence, at the museum is again another fan favorite. Interestingly, not a violent part of it, but something that really speaks to the emotional core of the characters, and we really get to see that relationship. It's effective. It's not quite a two-hander, but for all intents and purposes, that the episode is stunning work from both of them. A nice pause. a problem when you've got so few episodes that you kind of stop the pace. But if you're going to stop it, it might as well be for some pretty stellar performances. I love the little sequences in it, the references in the game, the stuff that they change slightly from the game, and the stuff they stick to almost frame for frame, I think works really well. The finale, it ended up where I pretty much thought it was going to end up, and I think we could calculate where it was going to be. They changed some stuff along the way, I think, for the better, just slight nuances. Again, my problem is that characters are not consistently reacting quite in the way that you would presume they should do, given the situation. It's almost as if there's the production is second guessing what an audience will like and what they won't. But yeah, solid episodes, as you say, for different reasons. The penultimate episode, very emotional, nuanced, and about a father-daughter relationship that a lot of people, I think, will identify with to some extent, and a finale that felt uneven, but almost felt like it was ticking boxes because of where we're going in the third season, which I think people will be working out from the epilogue where that it is.
Kevin, what about you?
So the penultimate episode, the price the price, is that what it is? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That we get the flashback. Now, seeing Joel back on the screen, I knew we were going to get a flashback. I was pretty positive, and I'm glad that we got it. But then I started thinking as I was watching this, going, "Oh, great, he's dead. What are we going to see here? Hopefully, we'll see stuff that fills in some gaps." And that's exactly what happened. And we got to see flashbacks of the relationship. And the thing that really, really annoyed me, now I know the big discussion in that is Ellie forcing the truth finally the truth about what happened with the Fireflies and rescuing her. But the discussion before where he kills Eugene.
Yeah.
And he's saying, he's giving the story of what didn't happen, of course, saying that he decided to take his life. And then you see Ellie pretty much betray him in front of everyone, right? And the look of betrayal on Joel was gut-wrenching. And that really actually pissed me off. And another reason why this pretty much cemented that, okay, I don't like it. I don't like Ellie as a character, and I don't like her as a person. Because if she's going to go through all of this with Joel, she's going to pull him aside later and give him a chance to explain why she lied, not call him out right there in front of everyone. And I understand the lie. I understand this is what spawns, getting the truth out of Joel, because she basically just blindsided him and made him as vulnerable as possible and called him out on the lie. But I think that should have been done in private, because she should have understand why he did that, and they've been through enough crap together to understand, look, let's let this guy's memory live on with a little positivity. Obviously this guy was going to die one way or another. And so that just pissed me off. Regarding the last episode, it kind of was going the way that I was going. I was kind of hoping to get a little more thing on the Seraphites. But I was watching the last episode just kind of in dread. I wasn't enjoying myself. I was wondering are we going to get the final showdown here with these two? And then we get the 3 days earlier thing. I'm like, oh, okay, great. And then it just stops. I'm going, and you want me to wait another 2 years? Anyway, that's where I was at after this last episode.
I think all interesting points. And guys, let's get into some of those points, because I've got a few hot topics here. And just briefly too, before we get into the hot topics, guys, I just want to mention we need to give the cast and crew some love here, because they were phenomenal this season as far as the cast itself goes in their role. And like you said, John, this show has a couple of people who should be at least in consideration for Emmy nominations. But I want to give the cast out some love, because I think across the board, even with Ramsey playing Ellie, the fact that she making this character kind of not likable for a lot of people. That's kind of the point. She's a brat, and even in the game, she's a bit of a brat. So I think she's done a phenomenal job. John, just kind of real quickly, your thoughts on the cast for this season.
I mean, it's an A-list cast who work very well together. The problem the series has, all the opportunity the series has, and why I think in some ways it won't be judged entirely fairly by me or anybody else until we have four seasons to watch it all, is that effectively, if we're presuming it follows the narrative of the game, it keeps changing, not who you're rooting for, but almost who's bouncing off other people. So when you get chemistry, which all the cast have in spades, in abundance, you don't always get all the combinations that you want because we're moving on and then we're seeing how they react with this person or how they react in this situation. So while it's an ensemble, it's not necessarily, we look at the characters there, there are very few times that even half of these people are in the room together at the same time. And that's both an opportunity for, a masterclass in, one-to-one and dialogue, but also means that you don't get to see them very often acting in a way where they've always been out the same quality, different qualities. But yeah, an absolutely stellar cast. And ones that I mean, some of the casting has been controversial. I think what can't be argued is the talent. Okay, Bella Ramsey doesn't look like Ellie did in the game, and we can all probably think of 2 or 3 actors who could have probably looked the part and probably been up to the job. But Bella Ramsey was the person who got the job, and think she's doing a stellar performance. I think the argument would be some of the story choices might not be, but as a performance-wise, she's great. Isabela Merced is great. Pedro Pascal can do no wrong in just about anything he's in. And Mazino, Caitlin Dever. These are all people who are very good. And I think the thing is, and they've already said this isn't a spoiler, just because somebody ends up dead in the game, in the series, doesn't mean they won't appear again in flashbacks and stuff. So I wouldn't count anybody that you think that's them, done from not appearing again, particularly with the way that the narrative is going to probably be used over the next couple of years. We'll get a chance to see all of these people again in different circumstances. And that's a wonderful thing and frustrating at the same time.
Kevin, what are your thoughts on the cast?
Excellently performed. They put a great cast together here, with the exception of the casting of Bella. I'm just going to say it. Sorry. She's great in it, and she does it well. But I do hope that Isaac, though, and Bella do get recognized for an acting award in this. Whether you like her or not, she's effing good. And I think Isaac really showcased the powerhouse actor that he is, and I hope he also gets recognized in some way or another, whether it's an Emmy or something like that. He's just so good.
Yeah, very good. But guys, too, we got a couple hot topics here. We're gonna keep this short because we're running a little long here. But I guess the big question for each of you is: did this season hit the mark for you? John, we've talked about it. I know the pacing was a bit of an issue in this, but I kind of feel like because they make the decision to break up the game as well, because The Last of Us 2 is a longer game, and break that into multiple seasons, that might be a part of the effect. But did season 2 hit the mark for you on The Last of Us?
It's something I think we keep coming back to, isn't it? That on so many levels, it's fan-bloody-tastic. I mean, it's great television in just about any checklist you could come up with. And yet it doesn't always hand together perfectly. And what I think this season has, it's interesting, the choices they've made. Now, I mean, we're going full spoilers on this. So, yes, they followed the game pretty closely with a few, deviations, a few detours. And I think probably for better or for worse, it's going to be fairly obvious actually how they'll do the next 2 seasons for anybody who's played the game. But that has been the pacing has been the frustration, only because what we've seen has genuinely been very, very good. I mean, some of the choices, some of the narrative things we can disagree with, but the quality has been up there. I just wish, and excuse me, we've said this before, that because this is an expansion of the game, it feels like there are opportunities that in the second season that had been missed. I can't blame them for anything that they've done because once you play the whole of the game, every decision, however controversial, makes some sort of sense. Whether you end up liking it or not, you understand. You go, okay, now I know why they did that person that did this, or why that person did that. And there's you watch it a whole encapsulated saga of what revenge costs. But watching this show at the moment, on one hand, it's too eager to almost not make people wait. I saw this in the review that somebody said, and I thought, yes, that absolutely nails it. That it doesn't quite feel so sure of itself that it can leave things hanging and saying, "Don't worry, you know, it might be a while before we get to this, but you'll see this from the other perspective at some point, and it will all make sense." And they may be right, because I think the audience, as an audience, we are impatient. You know, as you said, Kevin, I think it could be another year, could be another 18 months before we get a third season, and probably another 18 months after that. So it could effectively be nearly three and a half years before we get to the end of where The Last of Us, the game, finished. So it's working out why they've done things, why they haven't taken the opportunities to perhaps pace things a little differently, tell the same story in a slightly different way. And it's frustrating. I found myself frustrated throughout this season, going like, oh, why didn't they just do this? Why didn't we deviate this way? Why didn't we tell these exact events in a slightly different order? So I got frustrated during this, but I never disliked the series. I think it's a powerhouse. I think it's one of the best series, performance-wise, ensemble-wise, ambition-wise, out there. And I kind of applaud them for, in some ways, sticking to their guns and say, no, the game is strong enough. We're gonna largely stick to the game and everything else. But there is that voice in the back of my head that goes, oh, wouldn't this be, not just good, but truly great if they'd taken this opportunity? And they do take opportunities. There's been episodes which put the pause button on, and when they do, there's some brilliant performances, some oasis in the middle of all the carnage. But yeah, at the end of this season, I kind of felt some bits of it was a little bit too slow, and a lot of it was happening way too fast. I would love it if they didn't say, we have 4 seasons, or we've got to get to this. It's take the time. And I think this season could have been easily and should have been 10 episodes long. It's one of my quibbles nowadays. Same thing with Doctor Who, recently, is that 7 and 8 episodes artificially means that everything has to be squeezed a little bit. For me, 10 to 12 episodes, if you have a quality cast and a story to tell, is about right. Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's too long for things. But for something like this, anything less than 10 episodes means that something's going to be rushed. And it's the unevenness of the season that, for me, has been frustrating. Some of the choices I can live with, even if I would have done things differently. It's stunning television. It really is great television, and it feels like I'm quibbling. But those quibbles, it's just the difference between being really good and great, and it's so close. But it's just that pacing for me that, and some of the decisions and some of the opportunities missed. It's very good at what it does, but I just wish certain things were different.
Kevin, what about you? You have said this has not been your favorite show this season. Felt a little bit like homework at times. So your overall thoughts on season 2 of The Last of Us?
Did not live up to expectations whatsoever. Just to answer that question right out of the bat there. Should have been 10 episodes. I agree with John there, but with it being 7, and also too, I don't give a crap about what they did in the game or what they changed in the game. They should have waited till the end to kill Pedro Pascal, because then we will have a big question in our head, and we'd have to wait a year or 2 years to find out if the show can be carried on without Pedro. You should not have killed him in the second episode. I don't care what the video game says. Don't give a crap. Never will do. So that was the biggest problem with that show, because as far as I'm concerned, that was a huge portion of it that I really liked, seeing those two characters, Bella and Joel, together. And I love the teaching, and I love the the torment from both of these characters. And just to kind of put this show side by side with another show that has exceeded my expectation, is in my opinion, the best show of the series, and is telling a 10 episode series right now. Just finished episode 8, is Mobland with Tom Hardy and Pierce Brosnan. This is a way you do a television series. There is some horrible people in this series, but for some reason or another, there's something to like about each of these characters, and it keeps me riveting and it keeps me watching. And so when someone does die, yes, it sucks, or yes, it's great, but at least, all of these characters and the way that this plot is done I highly recommend it. Back to The Last of Us here. So after I ended up watching, after this episode, I was noticing there's like 13 minutes left, and we're like, wait, what's going on here? So I keep playing it on HBO Max, and they have that behind the scenes and that kind of like wrap up of the series, and all the creators are talking about it. 3 different creators use the word, it's the tragedy that really needs to be expressed here, and is what we're following through with these characters or character. It's the tragedy this, it's the tragedy this. I wanted to shoot myself in the head. Seriously, it was just so depressing, and it just really, really made me feel like, what the hell am I watching here? And why do I, as a casual viewer, want to keep watching this when I don't care about the video game, and I will never play the video game? Now, with that said, by the way, guys, I don't know if you know this. It was brought to me by a friend of mine at work who's been watching the show, and he has played the video games. I've been asking some questions about it. And he says that in Last of Us 2, the end of the game, they actually go to Santa Barbara. I don't know if you guys know this. That's where I live right now. That's where I'm recording from. And so I Googled it, and the game guys actually sent the character Ellie to Santa Barbara because she needs to go out to, I think it's either Catalina Island or Santa Cruz Island, because we have a Channel Islands out there. And I'm looking at the screenshots. I'm like, oh my God, that's a train station. Oh my God, that's the overpass. Oh my God, there's that house. So, and I'm like, is that going to make me now want to pay attention to it?
I have to say that the one thing about the game, and by turns the TV series, is the production values. For the game, they went out there and they scanned whole areas of cities and then changed them. And for the kind of reverse for the series, they've taken some of the real locations and used them, and used the artificial locations for the game and recreated them. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the things. There is a real sense of place, I think, in some of the setups of the series and the game. You honestly believe that these could be the real places. It's not just the netherworld of Ooga Booga, or whatever. Somebody's made up a name. It feels like Seattle. It feels like Santa Barbara. I'm looking for Kevin, or what's left of Kevin, in there as well. And the series does have a sense of humor about it. It does spot that and goes, okay, can we do some, can we have some fun with that? There are moments of fun in the tragedy. If you want, I have to say, before I forget this, if you did watch it on HBO Max, did you get the Corona adverts before it started?
I don't remember.
Oh, right. Normally, the spokesman for Corona is one Pedro Pascal. But for the final episode, you see this seat, and guy wanders up, and you're thinking, oh, it's going to be Pedro Pascal. It's Gabriel Luna, his brother. And he goes, basically, when you're missing people, have a drink. And I'm just going like, okay, brilliant.
Yeah, no, I didn't get that. Yeah, I didn't get the commercial break.
Yeah,
so
I thought that made me laugh before we went into the tragedy of the episode.
I just want to say, for me, Last of Us Season 2, both of you have excellent points. I think Ellie did get a little annoying at times, and you were starting to really not like the character. I think there was a little bit of redemption towards the end of the episodes, especially in the flashback episodes, because I think you're seeing some things from her perspective as well. And I think the flashback episode, if you're going to nominate an episode for Emmy nominations, that's the episode to do it. Like John, I was surprised at some of the aspects they pulled the trigger on so early within the series, even though that happens in the game. It just felt like they would diverge a little bit. The pacing was off all season for me, though. That's just something. It's like times where they were trying to prolong things, or they were trying to rush a bunch of things through, and they couldn't quite find the pacing. And I think That was one of the things that kind of took me out of a few of the episodes. But for the most part, though, everything else was just phenomenal. Phenomenal acting in this series, as always. The work is the surrounding work with the sets and everything like that was phenomenal. Seattle looked absolutely amazing, but the season, I don't think it was quite as good as the original season. I think a lot of people who hadn't played the game kind of feel a little bit lost and maybe not as involved in this. And I'm curious to see how that plays out with how they go the rest of the way. But I think I would still give this season a very solid rating because I think it was still phenomenal television and phenomenal acting with some amazing things. Because it's just been very well handled for the most part. Again, not everything is perfect, but I think it's still one of the better things we've seen on TV. But I mean that's just my feeling on it. John, you have been an amazing guest. I know you are on a bit of a time crunch. Do you have any final thoughts, Kevin?
Well, just real quick, you have one last question here. I thought we should answer before we go out.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, guys. So the other question I have here is that
are you on board for season 3, John?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Having played the game, which Kevin never will. It never felt. I mean, it does feel like a game. Obviously, you're playing as a character and you have to solve problems, but it always felt like a story. Always felt cinematic. And it will be interesting if everybody stays on board for the full, for the full picture of the story, what people will feel like when they get to the end. Because, again, picking my words carefully, I know you haven't played the game. I don't want to openly spoil absolutely everything, but it is about the relentlessness and the horribleness and the cost of revenge. You're right. Nobody's going to get out of this unscathed, physically or emotionally. I do think it's a really great idea that we're going to change perspectives. This has felt like a slightly different tone, slightly different perspective from the first season. I suspect that the third season will mainly be an Abby season and her team, and you seeing events that you've perhaps already seen or happened in the background. I tend to notice if you play the game, you'll spot things or conversations that happen in the background where you think, oh, I know what that's going to be about. That will be another challenge for the series, to reinvent itself with probably very little Bella Ramsey in it. I'm sure she will be in it. I bet Pedro Pascal will turn up in some way in flashbacks. But it's every season will kind of reinvent itself a little bit. I'm definitely on board because I liked even though there's decisions in the game narratively that I don't like, they're meant to be controversial. They're meant to have you on different sides of the equation. Was Joel right to do what he did? In the first season, people argue about that. Well, it was stupid, and whatever. And then people say, but if it was your daughter, if it was your kid, would you do any less? And those are the conversations I like that should be generated by interesting, entertaining TV. And the series or the game continues to challenge people, saying, yes, if you think that, how far are you willing to go before you say no? And if you say no, why for this person and not for that? It's really quality narrative in its ambition. I suspect the show will continue to be that. Whether that will work to the same extent it works in the game, I don't know. It is a different format. It has opportunities again. It has challenges to do that. I will definitely be on board for a third season, and what I presume is the fourth season. I think they're talking about. I wish in some ways that I say they could expand things out, maybe go beyond the game. Maybe we'll have news of The Last of Us Part 3 by the time the series finishes. I suspect we will. But yeah, no, I'll be on board. It blows a lot of things out of the water. I think some of Kevin's points, while I might not agree with them, are perfectly valid points. But at least we're talking about them. It's not like this is boring TV. It's this is what really pisses me off, or this is what really excites me. And we're living in a quality age of TV. There is no shortage of that at the moment. And give me more. That's great. I will keep wearing the T-shirt for it.
Okay, Kevin, the bigger question for me is, are you on board for season 3?
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'll only stay in touch with it if my wife wants to watch it, and she may watch episodes without me, and I'll just ask her what happened, but it's more of just kind of a draining emotional watch for me. And what's interesting too is I was thinking back to a recent popular show that almost lost me and then redeemed itself the following season. And Kyle, you remember this? Stranger Things. Season 2, it lost me, and I almost didn't come back to it. And I gave it a shot, and it totally redeemed itself. To quote there, but yeah. So I just, because I know where this is going, and it's going to be a downer show, Debbie Downer show, as my wife always says, and some people love putting themselves through that, and that's fine. But I want something with a little more likability and a little more hope, and to keep going, to invest that much time. If it's a movie and it's an hour and 30 minutes, that's fine. But I don't need to wait another year and a half or 2 years to watch something that I'm probably not going to get into if this is the way this thing's going. So, but if I find out that they're filming here in Santa Barbara, I'll go check it out and we'll see what happens.
If Kevin gets to be an extra on The Last of Us, I am definitely in for season 3. I'm very curious to see which way they're going with things. So,
John, wait, behind you, before we start recording, I did want you to mention, you have something behind you I'd like you to mention real quick, and for the audio listeners.
This is,
yes.
I love books that go behind the making of shows, the real quality official tie-ins. A colleague of mine, Abby Bernstein, does a lot of books that tie into movies and stuff.
Okay.
So I've always been a fan of things like that. And I've got the art books for both The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2, presents from my wife on consecutive Christmases. And this is just, I can't recommend it highly enough. If you like the game, this is full of, how this is before the TV series happened.
Oh, wow. Okay.
These are all the designs for the characters, for the locations, how they put things together. There's text in there, but it is visually led. How things were designed, how characters evolved, how they were originally going to look, how cities like towns like Hillcrest and the museum looked, the theater,
that's a pretty thick book too.
This is not cheap. Yeah. This will set you back on Amazon anywhere between about $40 and $70, sometimes more, depending on condition.
Nice. Okay.
If you like the show and you like the side of it, I can't recommend it highly enough, particularly if you played the game. I mean, this is from the game, not the show. But really, just some of the fantastic imagery that goes along, that shows the commitment. You can tell why it takes 4 or 5 years to bring something to the screen just by the different ways they even looked at how Ellie was going to look and how they could have looked. It's fascinating. I've read this. I've looked through this so many times. And if they do,
so it comes recommended then.
Oh, absolutely. If you love The Last of Us, I'd say there's 2 books. There's one that's original, which is pretty good. This is shiny. This is nice. Absolutely stunning art. It just shows you the amount of commitment they put in. And I like things like this. I'm a very visual guy. I like it, and that's one of the strengths of both the game and the show. That I think we've said the production values, not just in that it looks good, but that they haven't just gone, hey, it's a TV studio, or hey, it's a museum. They've gone back to the games. And the games people went to reality. And there's a real sense of the world there, not just something that's been thrown at the screen with a few nice little pixels.
Production value is amazing. I'll give it that.
One of the best production values, I think, out there in recent years, I think, honestly.
Well, John, I know you're going to be leaving for a little while, but we appreciate you having on talking about The Last of Us, especially since we just saw the last episode last night. So appreciate you, man.
Pleasure to do that, and hopefully I will return at some point. Oh, yes, I will return, but you must go on in your beliefs as I will go on in mine. And yes, I will. Hopefully it won't be too long before we're talking about Last of Us season 3.
Yeah, looking forward to it, John. Thank you so much again. Also, remember, please to check out his new show on the Fandom Podcast Network, Optimum Pitch. We again just so honored to have you as part of that, John. And can't wait to get more.
Honored to be
develop more and working with you. It's been an honor to get that go launch for you. So, John, safe travels. We know you're doing some travel, getting ready to do some traveling.
In about 12 hours. 12 hours from now, I will be getting on a plane. So yes.
Well, we're going to let this man. We're going to let this man get some sleep. Thank you so much, John. And
thank you, John.
We'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
See ya.
Okay, guys. As much as we've enjoyed talking The Last of Us Season 2, there are a few other things we do talk about here on.
We're almost done, but not done.
Yeah, we're not done. We're almost done, but we're not done. But guys, guess what? It is time for a quick edition of Buy It, Stream It,
or unsee it.
Okay, I'll be honest with you. My week has been absolutely insane with all kinds of other things that have to.
Life has taken over, Kyle. I get you.
Yeah. So, but Kevin, you did get a chance to see it in a couple movies, including the big one for the weekend. But I gotta ask you, where's your letterbox at, my friend?
Oh, it's at 188 movies going into end of May here since I been keeping track on Letterboxd since January 1st, 2025. So I've been doing all right, pacing myself, doing all right. So yeah.
Well, guys, Kevin, you did go see the big movie for Memorial Day weekend, Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning. So I need to know your thoughts, my friend.
I'll just start off by saying it was a lot of fun. It was a good sequel with a lot of references to its previous film, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. And they did a really good job of tying up all the story and the characters, and it was a lot of fun. I took my wife to go see it. I'm not going to say she went grudgingly, but she's like, we love movie dates. I go to horror movies with her as well. So she went in this, and what's interesting is she hadn't seen Dead Reckoning, and she hasn't really seen some of the other ones. I know she saw the first one like way back, what was it, 29 years ago, Kyle, I think it was. But she was like, it was okay. I think she nodded off a couple times and stuff like that. But she watches this reviewer called Critical Drinker, and she's a fan of this guy's takes, and he says that he liked this film, but he thought Dead Reckoning was a better film. And you and I had seen Dead Reckoning, so we knew kind of what we were getting into. So she's like, well, now I kind of want to watch this. So we watched Dead Reckoning. So we went kind of backwards, which was interesting. And you get to see all of the stuff that they finally wrapped up and stuff I had forgotten, Kyle. Because I don't know when the last time you saw Dead Reckoning. It was a while ago. But it's a great two-parter to kind of put together, but then like other characters came in previously. So we're going to check out, was it Fallout? That was the previous one with Henry Cavill. So in a way, we're going to kind of watch it backwards. We're going to Benjamin Button it a little bit. It's interesting way to approach it, but yeah, so it was interesting. I recommend it. It's definitely a buy it for me. And Tom Cruise does not disappoint with his stunts in this film. As you can see from the poster, that is him on the plane hanging upside down. It's great.
Well, I'm just glad you didn't self-destruct during the movie.
Yes. I didn't get a popcorn bucket because our theaters suck, but I wish I had because Lacey got a really cool one. I guess two keys open up one of the popcorn buckets that she got. And then
very cool.
So, yeah.
Well, Kevin, you talked about how your wife kind of not begrudgingly went, but let's just say it was one for you, one for the wife, because the next one to me screams that Aaron said we must go see this movie, and that is Final Destination: Bloodline.
Yeah, Final Destination: Bloodlines, by the way, the final film of Tony Todd, rest in peace. And he had a pivotal role in this film. Apparently, he was in the first film that I didn't know about. Now, let me just say this. I had never seen any of the other films in their entirety. I've seen plenty of scenes. I know all about the Final Destination moment. Now, that's a saying because of the logs on the truck, and I've seen that scene. I've watched it, but I've never watched any of the other films all the way through. But I watched this one, and I got to tell you, thoroughly enjoyed it, Kyle. I'm a good fan for good death scenes in movies, and I love the concept of these movies that, if you escape death, death is not having it and will find a way to make sure you do see death. And if you procreate and have heirs, then your heirs are going to pay for it. And that's what this movie kind of talks about, which is interesting. And one of the things, there's a great opening death scene. Think about going to the 1960s era and going up into the opening of a new tower, kind of like the CN Tower in Toronto or the Space Needle, and bad stuff happens. There's some very creative death scenes in this, and it made me want to go and watch the original Final Destination, which we did. And I did enjoy that. And Tony Todd was in that one as well. So rest in peace. I do recommend this. I may buy it if there's like a collection of all of them. I actually have the first 4 on DVD, but definitely stream it. There's some scenes in this that do relate well to the big screen. If you're a fan of these, go see it.
Very good to know. Well, that is going to wrap up this edition of Buy It, Stream It, or See It. But we have been talking about The Last of Us Season 2. Again, special thanks to our guest, John Mosby, this week. Kevin, I know it wasn't as fun for you as Season 1, but I appreciate you working your way through it, even though it wasn't always your cup of tea. But I think it's good to sometimes stick through a show at least through the season. Don't just give up on mid-season because you never know what could happen as you're watching it. And I think too, for me, like it was a little up and down myself, but episode 6 I think was outstanding. It captured some pretty special moments, I think, as well. They're just right from the game and some other things. So yeah, I think I would still give season 2 a thumbs up, but it's definitely not quite there like season 1 was. But
I'm giving it a thumbs down.
But guys, so you have been watching Culture Clash here on the Fandom Podcast Network, and hopefully you'll be either watching it on our YouTube channel or listening to it on one of our podcast feeds as well. And of course, this is the Fandom Podcast Network, where we are trying to constantly feed your ears with excellent podcasts. And you can find us a lot of different places, starting with scanning the QR code on your screen. If you're watching on YouTube, scan that. It'll take you to our homepage at fpnet.podbean.com, where you can listen to the audio feed of all of our amazing shows. And we are all over the social medias, including on Blue Sky, Kevin.
I'm sorry, what was that, Kyle?
Can you find us on Blue Sky?
Yes, at FanPod Network, just like our X handle as well. And you can also find us on Instagram and, of course, on Facebook. So, yeah, check us out.
And, of course, you can find me at AKyleW on X or AKyleW on Blue Sky. You can also find me on Instagram and Threads at AKyleFandom, and of course all over the great pages of the Fandom Podcast Network that you can find on Facebook. Kevin, where can people find you on social media?
On all the socials, you can find me at Spartan_Phoenix, and on Blue Sky, you can find me at Spartan Phoenix.
And just a reminder out there too, TeePublic. We have a Fandom Podcast Network store on TeePublic where you can find all the gear, just like the Culture Clash shirt Kevin is wearing, and of course shirts, mugs, hats. Pretty much just about anything. They make it at TeePublic, and you can get any of the logos of the Fandom Podcast Network on those gear. And we get a little kickback here because we got to keep the kaiju in the basement fed. Otherwise, he gets a little grouchy and his breath gets really bad. And you don't really want to see that. I'm just saying. But we have a lot of fun here, and we appreciate your support. And most importantly, we like seeing you in our gear. So we thank you so very much for it. But we're going to close things out here. This has been Culture Clash episode 278, The Last of Us season 2, with our great guest John Mosby. Again, make sure you check out Optimum Pitch as well, the newest addition to the Fandom Podcast Network. Kevin, it's been a pleasure avoiding spores and zombies with you this week. We're gonna figure out. We haven't quite figured out what we're doing for the next Culture Clash because we got a lot of things happening right now here at the Fandom Podcast Network. But we'll let you know soon, and when we do that, we will be back. And Kevin, any words for the people here?
Just say, yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. And let us know what you think of The Last of Us. Give us some comments, shoot us some emails, and let us know. We appreciate it.
And just as much as we appreciate you listening, but as always, we close out with, first and foremost, respect each other. And more importantly, enjoy your fandom. We've done this thing, and guess what, guys? We are out of here.